Hey there, and welcome back to my channel, The Sunday Cook, with me, Anthony. I'm really excited about tonight's episode because I've been craving this particular dish all day, and a lot of people in the office were talking about this, and I thought, do you know what? It's so easy to dial a number and order one and have it delivered, but actually it's just as easy and probably faster. Just make your own. So here I am making a pizza. These are mini pizzas, and I was talking and I was inspired by a friend of mine who was going on about her trip to Barcelona, and so I decided to substitute the what I would have used is a sausage, an Italian sausage, but I'm actually using a chorizo. So here I've got some ready-made pizza bases, and these are pizza bases that I had frozen and made the dough a couple weeks ago. I'm using some aubergine, and I love aubergine because it just soaks up all the flavors that you add to it. Aubergine doesn't naturally have a lot of flavor, so here I'm just slicing them into I would say about a 5 to 10 millimeter width slices. And then I'm just going to season it with lots of flavor. So here I'm using, as usual, lots of garlic. And then what you'll see later is I'll just add in some few other herbs and spices. So once I've finally chopped my garlic, and I'm chopping it quite fine because I want it dispersed on every single strand of, or slice rather, of aubergine. So I'm finally mincing it with my chef's knives, and then I'm giving it a bit of a scrape. Place it in a large bowl, a bowl large enough to contain all of those aubergine slices. And for the aubergines, I've actually kept them sort of the length of them, so I haven't chopped them into smaller pieces. And you'll see why a little bit later. So I'm adding a tablespoon of paprika, then some thyme and a good quality olive oil, and a couple shakes of my sea salt. I'm using flake sea salt. And that's pretty much the only seasoning in terms of salt content that I'm adding, simply because the chorizo has a lot of salt already in there, and I'm using a barbecue sauce that I'm laced with some tomato paste, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm lining them up on a baking sheet, and my oven is currently preheated at 200 degrees Celsius. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that in the top shelf of my oven, reduce the temperature down to about 180 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to let it roast for approximately 15 minutes. And so during this time, I will prepare the rest of the ingredients. So this is where the Spanish influence comes from, and it's really from the sausage that you'll see in a bit. So first off, I'm just chopping up these little plum tomatoes, and I'm using these plum tomatoes as opposed to a regular tomato because they just, they're bursting with flavor, and they're just really intense in their tomatoey flavor. I'm adding some mushrooms. Those are actually not for me, they're for Dwayne, because he loves his mushrooms and I don't. I'm using one red onion, and I'm just going to thinly slice it into rounds. And I say thinly because the cooking time for the pizzas is actually quite small, quite short, so you don't want to cut them too large because otherwise they'll still be raw when it's time to serve. So I'm taking the outer casing of the chorizo, and the chorizo that I'm using is actually a sweet and slightly mild sausage. So you can get different varieties. You can get some that are a lot more spicier, and some that are less sweet. This one is just mild. It's it's an all-rounder. It fits its purpose for this evening's dinner. I love the chorizo because it is such a versatile ingredient in itself. You can use it for so many different things, and I've used it in things like stews and all sorts. Here, so this is a barbecue sauce that I've made and kept in the fridge, and I've laced it with some tomato paste. And the reason for that, it's just flavor. I just wanted to give it a little bit of an edge. So now it's time to pile it up. Pile it nice and high with lots of the ingredients that we've just prepped. So first off was the aubergines, then the red onions, followed by the mushrooms, just on the ones that are for Dwayne. And then the chorizo. So I've placed the chorizo fairly close to the top of the mound of ingredients, simply because I know that the heat is going to touch that area first, and that's going to help cook through the meat. Once that's done, I'm going to add my mozzarella, and here I'm using a low-fat mozzarella. Oh no, sorry, before the mozzarella, I'm adding a couple shreds of fresh basil. And you know what, with pizzas you can do pretty much what you want. I mean, you don't need to follow this recipe, this is just a little idea. I've added my tomatoes that I've sliced into, diagonally so they don't slip off. Because as you can see, I'm quite generous with the topping. A couple shakes of freshly cracked black pepper. And now finally, oh no, I'm adding more aubergines. And I've put them in a crisscross sort of situation purely because then they kind of drape over and they just try and, you know, keep everything together. So when it's cooking, it doesn't, you know, the tomatoes don't roll off or anything like that. So now, yes, now I'm adding the mozzarella, and I'm using a low-fat version. But of course, you can feel free to do the whole all-fat, you know, full-fat version. There's some really good buffalo mozzarella on the market out there. You just have to head into a Italian deli, and you're probably gonna find it there. They should have like a really creamy texture, and then when you tear them, so I don't bother slicing them, I just tear them apart, and what you notice is that it's actually made up of little layers. And then to finish it off, I'm just gonna add a little bit of parmesan, just a little touch, because it just gives that the mozzarella is a very sort of neutral, very soft flavored cheese, whereas the parmesan has a little bit of a bite to it. And then that's it. You pop it in the oven, and 20 minutes later or 25 minutes later at 180 degrees Celsius, it's ready to plate up. And these are great as little individual pizzas for a little night in. You can actually, you know, turn it into a party where you've got bowls of different toppings and get everybody, all of your friends, to make their own pizzas. You just have to remember which one's yours. But I hope you like this, and I hope to see you again very soon. Don't forget, we're on Facebook and Instagram, and more importantly, if you like this video, make sure that you subscribe for more, and like, and share. Sharing is caring.